You see him on the news.
CNN.com contributor, Dean Obeidallah. So, Dean...
Watch him at comedy clubs.
When I say Mecca, do you think of a holy place or an urban clothing line?
Read his articles. And you hear him on the radio. The Dean Obeidallah Show is on live right here on SiriusXM Progress, Channel 127.
And welcome to the show, brothers and sisters of the Resistance, the winning Resistance. Thursday, November 15th, we're live next 3 hours. I'm Dean Obeidallah. On Twitter, at Dean Obeidallah. Facebook.com/Dean of Radio, where you can watch the monologue, or if you so choose, or in the third hour, where we have a guest in studio, you can watch it there. Or drop me an email, dean@deanofradio.com. It is snowing in New York. I'm not sure if it's snowing where you are. It's snowing in New York. New York, when it snows, is beautiful for like 8 minutes. Then it becomes a slushy mess. It's just like unreal. Right now, though, we're in that 8 minutes of beauty. Sadly, later tonight when I go home or tomorrow, it'll be just slush city. So first, got some news, but let's have some fun here because we have a big show. A lot of great guests. Congressman Ted Lieu's going to join us next hour. Carol Anderson, the professor from Emory University, who wrote a great book on voter suppression called One Person, No Vote. Talk a lot about Georgia with her. In the third hour, if all goes well, Stuttering John, you might know him from years on the Howard Stern Show, Tonight Show, will be in studio for the third hour. He is in town. He's got a brand new book out. It's actually a really good book. Interesting guy. He talks about politics a lot. So we'll have him. But first, here's Colbert last night on Donald Trump's acting AG, Matthew Whitaker, and how ridiculous his views are. Let's hear clip number one, please.
Matt Whitaker. We're learning some interesting stuff about Whitaker's past. For instance, his 2014 run for the GOP Senate nomination in Iowa. Now, he lost, but while campaigning, here's what he said was criteria for his judges.
I'd like to see things like their worldview, what informs them, how have they lived their lives, are they people of faith, do they have a biblical view of justice, which I think is very important because we all know that our government...
Levitical or New Testament? Huh?
I'm a New Testament. And what I know is as long as they have that worldview, that they'll be a good judge.
In the opinion of the present Attorney General of the United States, if you're not a Christian, you won't be a good judge. But it's right there in the Constitution. Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion, yada, yada, yada. What would Jesus do?
That's the guy who's now the head of the Department of Justice, who believes that no one should be a judge unless you believe in the New Testament, meaning only Christians should be judges. And I'm sure that informs his view on many issues, like only Christians should have high-ranking positions in the DOJ, and the list goes on. And then Matthew Whitaker, and here's Colbert on Matthew Whitaker's company that he worked with, and he was a paid advisor. And this company, literally, we're getting to know more, sold, I'm not kidding, Bigfoot paraphernalia, you know, like the Bigfoot, the creature, like the Loch Ness Monster, but Bigfoot. The company he advised did that. It also sold promises of time travel. Again, I'm not kidding. That's the man Donald Trump has picked to be his acting attorney general right now. Let's hear clip number two.
This is true. Whitaker was a paid advisor and hot tub pitchman for a company called World Patent Marketing. Well, in 2013, Whitaker's company claimed to have DNA evidence proving that Bigfoot exists. Now, quick aside, I worked for The Daily Show way back in the day, even before Jon Stewart, in the Craig Kilborn era. And we miss you, Craig. And back then, I interviewed a lot of Bigfoot enthusiasts, okay? For instance, once I interviewed a guy who said that Bigfoots were endangered, and we had to have breeding pairs brought together and breed them in captivity to save the species. Wow. Another time, I interviewed a guy who said that there were too many Bigfoot, they were overpopulating, and we had to cull the herds to save the species. Now, fun fact, I interviewed those guys on the same day, and either one of them would make a better attorney general than Matt Whitaker.
Absolutely true. This is unreal. This guy, and look, Trump tweets whatever goes into his mind. Today, we're not going to get into this much, but he was freaking out about the investigation of Robert Mueller, like really freaking out. And, you know, to me, Trump panic tweets in the morning, they smell like victory to me. I enjoy that. But there might be something going on. It might be Matthew Whitaker, who is Donald Trump's spy in the DOJ, who is now supervising Robert Mueller is telling Donald Trump exactly what's going on. And there's nothing prohibiting him from doing that. If he tried to stop the investigation just to protect Trump, that would be obstruction of justice. But Whitaker, who was Trump's spy on the Mueller investigation, telling him, hey, this is what Mueller has on you. Here's what he's got on everybody. There's nothing legally to prevent that. Ethically, maybe. Probably, likely, yes, but not legally, no. So, but here's some good news. And I want to say something, because last night we started with a kind of a dark monologue about the rise of hate with a sombrero and keep him out of the country, all that garbage. Here's some good news. First of all, in Maine, we picked up another House seat tonight. This is like the gift that keeps giving. It is unreal. We are now up a net gain of 35 seats, far more than any year since 1974 in the midterm election for Democratic pickups. And there are still 7 House races to be called. Of those, Democrats are leading 4, meaning we could end up with 39 flips. Unreal, folks. In California, there's 39th and 45th district, well as New York's 22nd and Utah's 4th. We're leading there. This could all be ours. But I want to say something on another positive. And another thing going on, breaking news, that in Florida, the Senate race between Bill Nelson and Rick Scott is now, because of the machine recount, which is automatically mandated by statute in Florida if the gap between them is 0.5%. Well, now, thanks to that count, the gap's gotten smaller. It's within 0.25, which under Florida law mandates a hand recount. So if they're going to a manual recount in Florida, which who knows how long that'll take for that race. The Gillum race and DeSantis, sadly, the gap is bigger. It's challenging for Nelson just historically to overcome that many votes, but really challenging for Gillum. But we'll see. That Senate race is going to a hand recount that tonight. But I want to say something else. I want to say thank you to America. And I say this all sincerity. Thank you to America for, this is personal to me and my community. And I mentioned I'm your Muslim BFF and all that, but I don't talk about Muslim issues that much on the show like I did on my old show. But tonight I want to, here at the top, to say thank you to America, to everyone out there who rejected Donald Trump's drumbeat of hate against Muslims and elected a record number of Muslims to office this year. Because now it's all been quantified, and I just wrote about it for the Daily Beast. 55 Muslims were elected this year, just last week. And obviously, the big names are the ones who ran for Congress: Ilhan Omar from Minnesota and Rashida Tlaib from Michigan. And Ilhan Omar's story is so remarkable because, in fact, she's a Somali refugee born in Somalia. And if she was applying to come to America now under Trump, she would be literally banned because of Trump's Muslim ban. But now he's got to deal with her in Congress. And I could say, well, the Muslims are coming to Congress, or the Muslims are coming to elected office. That's true. But I want to make it clear, though, Muslims have been here since before America. I mean, 15% of the slaves who were brought from Africa were Muslim. So Muslims have been contributing to this country long before our country was created as slaves. But now we're moving up to elected office. And those 2 races for Congress got a lot of press, but there are countless other races of Muslims winning for the first time ever. Historic victories. Keith Ellison in Minnesota won for Attorney General. He is the first Muslim American in the history of America to be elected to a statewide office, which is pretty remarkable. And in North Carolina, I just met this young guy, 32-year-old lawyer, elected to the state Senate in North Carolina, the first time that's ever happened. His name is Mujtaba Muhammad, Indian American. There. You had 5 female American women elected to local positions in the Bay Area on the Board of Education and City Council. But all in total, 55 Muslim Americans won for office. And here's the irony of all this. Almost all of them were inspired to run in response to Donald Trump's bigotry and ginning up of hate against Muslim Americans. So if Donald Trump thought he was going to cause us to cower and hide and be invisible and silent, the opposite happened. And that is a great thing to me. And, to be clear, for the Muslim American community, it's been challenging at different times, as you might imagine. Through sometimes lulls of it's calm, other times it's bad. From 2015, since Trump declared for the Muslim ban, through now, we've seen a continuing spike in anti-Muslim hate, assaults on our community. In fact, in 2016 and 17, more Muslim Americans were assaulted than in the aftermath of 9/11. So think about that for a moment. More Muslim Americans were physically assaulted for their faith in the last 2 years because of Donald Trump's bigotry than after the worst terrorist attack on our soil in ever. And that says a lot. And that says what Donald Trump has done. He's emboldened people to step up. We've all seen a horrible spike in bullying against Muslim students in this country. Horrible. It's quantified by various groups. 42 to 50% of Muslim students talk about being bullied for their faith. Meaning 1 out of 2 Muslim American students are bullied simply because of their religion or because they're brown or have a weird name. And that means their daily experience, the typical experience of a Muslim American student in this country, is to be bullied for your faith. I am not saying there was no bullying before Donald Trump. But what I am saying is that when people hear the person in the White House, or at the time the GOP nominee, demonizing Muslims, saying Islam hates us, retweeting anti-Muslim videos, trying to ban all Muslims because sending a message they are inherently dangerous, they're the enemy, they're a lethal threat to us, of course young people are going to think it's okay to bully the Muslim student because they're hearing it come from the top, from the White House. Why wouldn't you? So that's why we've seen a spike. But Tuesday's wins, to me, in all these different positions, yes, it was good for the Muslim American community. I think it's also good for the United States of America in a broader sense. For our community, it's very important because, there were many people, especially younger Muslim Americans, growing up in a country where they barely remember Obama. They knew him a little bit, but now they're young teenagers and they're living their life when you have a president who's literally said, I want a total and complete shutdown on Muslims. And it sends out a very clear message. You're not wanted in this country, that you don't belong in this country, that if you want to excel in this country, you have to hide who you are. So if your name is Muhammad, you better become Mike. And if you're tan, you can say you're Dominican or Puerto Rican, but don't say you're Arab or Pakistani. And that happened right after 9/11. And that sort of went away, but it was coming back under Trump. But these victories, I think, send a message to the Muslim American community that you can be proud to be Muslim and proud to be American. You don't have to hide it, be it your faith. You can be proud of it like anyone else. And if you don't want to talk about your faith, that's your choice as well. But you don't have to say, I'm not going to talk about my faith if I want to excel in this nation, if I want to move up in the corporate workplace, or if I want to move up and run for office one day. President Obama's last year as president, he had his first visit to a mosque. And I was honored. I was one of the Muslim Americans invited to that event. It's about 100 people there. And he said that day that in America, you don't have to choose between being Muslim or American. You are Muslim and American, just like any other faith group. No one says you have to choose between being Christian and American or Jewish and American. You're equally both. There's no issue. There's not a loyalty issue. You are proud to be both. But for Muslims, there was a sense that we were pushed by people to say like, I'm only American and Muslim doesn't matter to me. This is America. You can be both and you should be both. And I think these victories go a long way to doing that. And it's not like the 2018 election ended anti-Muslim candidates winning, sadly, even though we had some great victories. In 2000, we just had an election in North Carolina. Mark Harris, he won his election for Congress. He's going to Congress. He has said Islam is dangerous and the work of Satan. He's also said, Mark Harris, and he's going to be in Congress January 3rd, that the only way there'll be peace in the Middle East is if all Jews and Muslims accept Jesus Christ as their Savior. And he's going to Congress from North Carolina. So this is where we are right now. The story of America is that marginalized groups little by little become part of the fabric of this country through different ways. Getting involved in the media, getting involved in politics is one of that. Being elected by your fellow Americans sends a message to not just the candidates, but to the greater Muslim American community that you are part of the fabric of this nation, that you are not an enemy, you are a fellow American. And we don't believe in banning you. It could be no clearer message than that. And that's so important for my community. I also think it's important for the soul of this country, where we have this competition between Donald Trump's vision and the rest. Our vision is you celebrate diversity. Trump's vision is you demonize diversity. It cannot be more clear, a distinct vision between American values and this white nationalist, white supremacist vision of Donald Trump. And that's what it is. So I just want to say thank you to my fellow Americans across the nation, from California to Minnesota to elections from Michigan and East Coast as well, where Muslim Americans are now elected for the first time ever to various positions. And I hope that I'll do a great job. They'll serve people who might not even like a Muslim, but say, you know what? I have an issue with the state, so I have to go to my state senator. He's a Muslim guy. He's a brown guy. And he helped me. And maybe that changes their view slightly of Muslim Americans. And the same thing with Congress. Well, I don't like Muslims. My Congresswoman is a Muslim. I got to go. And they help them. And they see Muslim Americans as public servants. Just like I hope people who don't know a Muslim and listen to the show hear and go like, well, that Dean guy seems okay. Maybe they're not all scary, which we're not all scary. I can be scary. I'm not. Well, generally not. So to me, this is something. This is important. I think this is great for America. I think as a nation, we rejected Donald Trump's bigotry and hate with the big blue wave overall. But within that blue wave was a small Muslim wave. And I'm so happy, and it makes me so much more, it makes me prouder and prouder of our nation. The actions we've seen in response to Trump has made me more proud and love this nation more than ever. Things I took for granted, I don't any longer. And together as the resistance and this big victory on election night has certainly increased my sense of how important celebrating diversity is, and that you can't take things for granted like the First Amendment and freedom of religion. And you can't take for granted the idea that we should all be treated equally because regardless of our skin color or our ethnic group. And that perhaps I have taken that for granted, but now I don't any longer. I have not for 2 years now because of Trump. And it's been eye-opening. But thank you, America. That's what I want to say. So let's take a break. Come back. You're my guest. We have a lot of guests tonight, so I'm not sure how many other calls we'll be able to take, but you're my guest right at the top of the hour. And what does the blue wave say to you? Has it changed? Has it made you more proud on some level as an American? Has it made you more emboldened to step against Donald Trump? And I saw this great thing. We had a caller last night who talked about, I think it was Fernando, talked about his daughter who was too young to vote in Texas. But even though Beto O'Rourke lost, she was not despondent or depressed. She was more energized than ever because the gap was so close. And I watched a thing on MSNBC yesterday where middle-aged women, they were all like wives and moms, who had voted for Stacey Abrams, white and black. And Chris Jansing was the host and said, what's your reaction? If Stacey loses, are you going to be check out of this? Are you going to give up? Are you going to say, I've had enough? And all of them said, no, we are more invigorated than ever. Why? Because the gap was so close and everyone told them Stacey Abrams has no chance. This is Georgia. We're in the heart of the Jim Crow era. Jim Crow history is down here. There's no way a black woman's going to win. And she is within 20,000 votes of causing a runoff. Unreal. So I think our base is even more emboldened now. More focused, more ready. I'm more energetic, even though I'm physically a little tired. But I'd love to hear from you. 866-997-4748. 866-997-4748. Give me a call. You're my guest right to the top of the hour. Progressive values are the best of American values, and we need to keep fighting for them to save our country.
Don't go anywhere. This is the Dean Obeidallah Show on Sirius XM Progress 127.